Thanks again for being with us today, and I'm going to turn it over to our first speaker, Keanne Hogue. Keanne?
Thank you, Susan, and thank you all for joining us today. I'm a little shocked it's 2025 and I'm a little rusty with Zoom and everything. So thank you for joining us for Supplier Matching, a tool for business growth for North Carolina manufacturers. I'm the Director of Data Management System, Supplier Matching and Reporting for NC State IES and NCMEP, and I'm joined by my colleague, Eric Taylor.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Eric Taylor. I'm the Supplier Scouting Optimization Specialist for the North Carolina MEP and North Carolina State Industry Expansion Solutions. Thank you for attending.
So what we're going to cover today is really briefly who we are, why local sourcing, how the program works, some resources and takeaways for you, and most importantly, how you can participate. So first of all, we're Industry Expansion Solutions. We're part of NC State University's College of Engineering, and we have been helping industry, especially manufacturers, since 1955 with all of the services that you can see on this slide. We're celebrating our 70th anniversary this year. We have a statewide reach, and here are our regional managers who will be happy to assist you with any inquiries that you have or any situations or challenges. Give them a call or email. We are also, in addition to being part of NC State's College of Engineering, we administer since 1995 the NIST MEP program, the Manufacturing Extension Partnership Program grant for North Carolina. And we have a number of partners, again, across the state, statewide, and to help us work with manufacturers. And it's through our participation in the MEP National Network that we are able to provide these services to you today. And they have some special areas that they want us to focus on in addition to our normal work with manufacturers, one of which is technology adoption. And we're going to mention that later at the very end of the presentation. Another one is workforce development. And third, supply chain resiliency. That's why we're here today, to talk about supply chain resiliency, specifically how we can bolster the domestic supply chains. So why local sourcing? Well, I could almost leave it at this slide and just say, well, look at all of this. The first picture on the left is up from the Baltimore Bridge collapse. We have last year there was an earthquake in Taiwan that there was a lot of concern about how it would impact semiconductors. The third picture is a little bit closer to home. It's in Marion. It's Baxter Healthcare after Hurricane Helene came through. The map is of starting last year when there were disruptions through some of the shipping ports, the shipping routes across the globe. And then finally, the last one is the one that's called the price of fast fashion. This is a huge desert dumping ground for unwanted clothing. And all of those have to do with why local sourcing is becoming more and more important. All right, so first of all, local sourcing is becoming more important because there's a changing supply chain landscape. We learned that very vividly through COVID, but COVID, of course, while one horrible pandemic, we hear all the time about other potential pandemics. We are a global economy now. We are part of the world. What happens in one part of the world impacts us here, and that includes political unrest. We hear every day about how there's problems in the Middle East, there's problems with Ukraine and Russia. Anytime any kind of political instability happens, it can impact the industry that's in that country, which then can impact the industry and our supplier sourcing here. Also, natural disasters. Right now, we have, as we're meeting today, we have the fires in California, which could have supply chain implications. We had, of course, the hurricane, and then, of course, natural disasters that happen across the world will impact us here as well. Tariffs are another issue. We don't know if we will have increased tariffs, but many countries can impose tariffs, and that can then impact our ability to have supplies here. And then also relationships and other regulations. For example, the Department of Defense is very, very concerned about knowing where their products are made. And what they have been discovering as they've been trying to shore up their own industrial base, the defense industrial base, is that after you get a few levels down, many of those suppliers are in countries that are perhaps not as friendly to us as we would like. And so that really calls into question the national security of the country. So all of these factors put together are emphasizing for us the need to think differently about how we source our supplies, as well as there's a brand perception. If any one of these events happen, whether it's a political unrest or a natural disaster or some sort of regulation, if you have promised that you're going to get a component to another client and you miss that deadline, regardless of why, it hurts the trust in your company and it hurts your relationship with whether it's the consumer, whether it's another client further downstream. It's going to hurt that perception as well. And this goes back to that one picture on the prior slide about the clothing. There's a lot of emphasis growing now about our footprint when it comes to things like clothing or transportation. And there's a growing emphasis on, are we being as environmentally sound? Are we hurting the environment more? And again, that goes back to the perception of the brand, because consumers can vote with their wallet. And if they don't like that it's taking longer or that it's a less environmentally friendly material or less environmentally friendly way, it's going to hurt the brand perception. And the companies are paying attention to that. And so all of that comes down to risk. It's a risk for the supply chain. So how can we mitigate that risk? And one way that we can do that is through local sourcing. And none of this is to say that we will not continue to manufacture in places other than the United States, because of course we will. But we have learned that putting all of our eggs in one basket in one geography is perhaps not the most resilient way to manage our supply chain. So there are some other advantages too about local sourcing. One of which is it can lead to stronger supplier relationships. If you can pick up the phone and you don't have to think about perhaps time changes, or you don't have to get on a plane and fly for 10 or 12 hours, you can have a much stronger supplier relationship than you might be able to if there was a significant distance involved. If you could get in the car and be at your supplier if there's a problem in a few hours, you can fix the problem more quickly. You can be there to observe their operations. Also, it can lead to a faster response. If you need to increase or decrease your order, they can turn that around much more quickly, as well as it can lead for opportunities for collaboration and flexibility. Maybe the supplier can work with you to help come up with an innovative solution that you might not have been able to think of before. Also reduce costs, because it has a shorter transportation cost, which will also lead to reduced impacts on the environment. And then there's a lot of community support for this. As we've been presenting this program over the last year, we've discovered a lot of people have said, I would love to know that I could just source it within, a few minutes all the way to, even a few hours away. I just never thought that I could do it, because there is recognition that there are value in being able to source locally. And we've been so thrilled to see the enthusiasm for this, and we're here to tell you it can be done. And all of this is ultimately going to lead to resiliency in the supply chain. It's going to bolster the domestic supply chain. It's going to make our supply chains in the state and the country stronger. So bringing the focus specifically to North Carolina, I wanted to talk about why North Carolina. We feel that North Carolina is very, very, very well situated in order to be a domestic supplier. We have over 11,000 manufacturing establishments in North Carolina. It employs 471,000 workers, which is the third highest employment sector in the state. It contributes 16% of the GDP to the state and makes up almost 4% of manufacturing's contribution to the national GDP. North Carolina ranks 8th in the nation and 1st in the Southeast for manufacturing. And you can see on the image to the, I think it's my right, the map, that you can see the number of establishments. So manufacturing in North Carolina, it's statewide, it's in every part of the state. And we say that we make everything here from tortilla chips to computer chips. And what I mean by that is we can make everything. We can fabricate metal. We have chemical manufacturing. We can do any kind of manufacturing. We think that positions North Carolina to really be a strong supplier of local sourcing. So now I'm going to turn it over to Eric to talk about the supplier matching program.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Eric Taylor, and I am I deal with supplier scouting, supplier matching program. This program allows us to help small and medium-sized manufacturers and suppliers connect, helping them with their workforce and also helping them with their materials that are needed for their operations so that it can move forward without reaching out to other organizations that may be in across the state. One thing that I try to harp on every time I do one of these type of webinars is if your supplier relationship is within a driving distance away or a couple of hours away, that's a relationship. If you have to get on a flight to go visit your supplier or your manufacturer, that's a risk right there. Supplier matching program deals with finding a supplier and building, becoming a supplier. What the process is, it just basically, if you can contact us and get in contact with us, we will go ahead, sit down, do a quick intake with you, find out what your needs are, what your requirements are, what your capabilities are, what you are looking for in a supplier or a manufacturer. And then from there, we can take that information and go forward with that. Once we receive the inquiry, we put all that information in and then go ahead and push it forward. And then request form will be reviewed and we'll move it to the next step. And then we'll do the research for qualified research and qualified suppliers. One of the things we're going to do is we're going to give our state the head start right there. What we're going to do is look within North Carolina first and see if we can find a supplier that is within a couple of hours or maybe a county or two away from where you're at. That way it cuts down on your transportation costs and your materials cost going from point A to point B. Then we're not going to hold it too long in our hand. We're going to go next step right away and push it into the national network so it can go out to other states so they can start to do a search within their state for the materials and see if they can come up with the product for the organization. Connection and match made. Biggest thing, we have a lot of good feedback sometime with companies. We had a company that we started talking to in October timeframe. We put them in supplier scouting before the end of the year, and they have come up with 2 suppliers that are supplying them with the materials. That organization is out of Columbus County. We just recently dealt with another organization in Laurinburg, North Carolina, and they contacted me just yesterday and said, hey, we're looking for some more materials. And we connected that organization with about three or four suppliers nationwide and also within North Carolina to make a match. Sometimes it's going to be a positive result. Sometimes there's no match. If there's no demand created for the item, you may not be able to find that organization, or if that organization is what I say now is if it's under a rock and nobody it doesn't really know it exists, we cannot find it and we may not be able to find that material right away. That's why it's a good idea to build relationships and find out what organizations are around you so we can build those relationships. Additional information, short timelines. It's sometimes hard to work with that because if your supplier fails or you're working with one supplier and all of a sudden with all the disasters that's going on, all of a sudden your supplier falls off, we're in a rush right there to try to find an organization that can fill your need. I would tell any organization to diversify their supply chain, have a couple of suppliers deep. You should never be one supplier deep in your for your materials. You should have a couple of them out there, at least that can build up some type of competitiveness right there so it can cut costs. Involved throughout, that's organizations just working together and making sure we come up with a positive solution, and all inquiries are welcome. We are going to harp about Manufacturing North Carolina site. There was a positive result from that. We'll discuss it later. Next slide, please. Okay, supplier matching, it can be existing or new industry. It could be a new venture basically when you're looking for how to build your supply chain. It is open to anyone at this point. You have your state and your national opportunities. At least once a week we receive inquiries. So far for the year 2025, we're already at 15 supplier scouting opportunities that's out there, and we're right now combing through those right now to start sending out requests to the companies in North Carolina and see if we can find a match for them. It can be business to business or business consumer, but we deal with a lot of business B2B reshoring. There's a lot of organizations that are reshoring with potential tariff issue right now. A lot of companies are looking at reshoring. We need to bring it back because we have to bring it back to US because they're trying to cut the cost before it becomes too expensive to import that product. Becoming a supplier, it's not very hard. It's just get in contact with us so we know you're there. We put you in your manufacturer North Carolina site. We also will make sure you're in the sales force. And biggest thing we need in that is make sure we have a good contact with your organization. Your organization also has to have a good website because how manufacturing North Carolina works for in your benefit is it's not limited to just us where we can see it. It's in the World Wide Web. Everybody can see it and they can reach out to you if they're looking for you from California, Alaska, whatever the case may be. If they see your site out there and you have a niche item out there, they can see you and they can reach out to you directly. I've harped on this a little bit already. Large nationwide opportunities. There's the opportunities that come out across the board. It goes from coast to coast, north to south. Don't make a difference. Sometimes you have them right there next to your right there in your same city or the county next door. But it works in everybody's benefit. Economic development. The more that we can keep it right here in North Carolina, that opens up more jobs and opportunities within the state so that we can have more people in our state employed. Last thing I want to ever see is when their warn notice come through saying the organization is closing because we cannot keep up with what's going on in other states or throughout the world. A warn notice is a bad thing because that means people are going losing their jobs. But the biggest thing we could be doing is basically creating a job so that people are always employed in the state and creating more jobs than are needed. Sometimes can help benefit everybody across the board. There's also federal procurement. We're going to beat this one up a little bit in the slides, but there's the BABA opportunities that come out for Build America, Buy America for all federal agencies. Federal agency opportunities, you have the EPA, you have the Veterans Affairs. It was big request at the end of the year coming out of Oklahoma for VA hospital for new materials that's needed for their Department of Transportation is always sending stuff through. NOAA, Department of Interior, USDA, Department of Energy, Commerce, International Trade Association, Department of Treasury, Health and Human Services, and Department of Defense. All those organizations send out scouting opportunities all the time, and it deals with Build America, Buy America Act, basically saying that all materials for the government has to be produced within the U.S. or a certain percentage of it has to be produced in the U.S. If they cannot find it, they have to do a waiver. They are tracking how many waivers are doing it. So the demand is being created. We just have to find a network of organizations that can build the materials right here in the US for our government. Next slide, please. This is just an example of the supplier request form that we see that comes through NIST. This is what we see, and this is what we email an organization out there is looking for a supplier or manufacturer that can do it. Information that be collected, if we pulled it from you, would be description, reason, technical specifications, performance requirement, the volume, pricing, packaging, and time frame delivery. The more information that is provided, it will help us narrow down the search of an organization that is a good fit for there. If your organization does not fit the requirement or needs, let us know. Still, hey, we cannot do this because we have the capability, but we don't have the capacity. We still will report that information up. That way it's known where it's at. This helps in supply chain mapping also, where we know where these organizations are located at in the US and say, hey, in North Carolina, we have an organization that can build 50 widgets per week. We have right here in South Carolina another organization that can do 25, and we have another organization in Maryland that can do 25. That makes you 100% of what your product need is right there. That organization might just go ahead and say, hey, I have 4 different locations, 4 different suppliers, different lot numbers on each item. That way we know where it comes from. And then we just go ahead and collectively pull from those organizations. And that way they make that organization 3 suppliers deep automatically. It's just they don't have the capability to produce what that organization need by themselves. Next slide, please.
I moved in, I just want to say, think of this form as a starting point for a conversation, because we don't take that form and just look at it and go, oh, well, you don't meet this requirement, or you said no. We treat this as just a starting point to have that conversation. We recognize that there's a lot of back and forth and a lot of dialogue that needs to go on.
Okay, supplier matching, opportunity type, some are niche, some are broad. You see everything across the board. Some of the newest things I came across this week was transformer, transformers. Also this week that came out for the new year is also cables for the Navy. But you'll see everything across the sun. You have organizations looking for co-packers. You have organizations that are looking for pallets, like wooden pallets, refurbished pallets. You name it, it's across the board across there. The sectors that are in there are the B2B, B2C, food, textile, plastic, emerging sectors, build America, buy America, BABA. And this is an example on the right-hand side of some of the things we had almost a year ago, where a state in the Northwest was asking for some dog treat pouches. You have gas meters, you have X-ray detectable thread. You name it. This is just an example. It comes out once a week with new supplier scouting. So you'll have everything across the board that companies are requesting. Next slide, please. Okay, supplier matching numbers right here nationally. 260 supplier opportunities came out. There was almost 1,700 possible matches, 260 exact, 1438 partials, 6.5 matches per opportunity. In North Carolina, 8 exact matches, 15 partial matches, and the responses are increasing. We have also relationships that we are building when we start dealing with organizations more often. They may not have the capability or capacity to do it, but they might also just say, hey, we know this organization here. Here's the point of contact, the contact information. They may not be in our Salesforce, and we have just created another account and relationship just then when we reach out to them. Also, sometimes it's an organization that may not have no business coming across there, and the organization know, hey, this company does not have any business coming across. We need to help them stay alive. Here's this organization that needs help. And they pass that information out. The more information that's passed back and forth, it builds relationships, and also it helps us build a network a little bit stronger than what it is right now.
I love this
And on
slide
that,
because, oh, I'm sorry,
go ahead.
Eric. I just was going to say, I love this slide because it shows, first of all, on the left with the national opportunities, this was from about 1 year, a year and a half into the program. And the fact that there were almost 1,700 possible matches, meaning 1,700 manufacturers across the country for these 260. It's a great demonstration that, yes, we do have plenty of manufacturers in this country who could probably fill a lot of these opportunities and help bolster the domestic supply chain. And the same thing in North Carolina, as people begin to see that, this program is legitimate. On average, when these projects have been looked into more deeply and surveyed, $300,000 in new sales. So these are legitimate contracts, real dollars exchanging hands, real jobs being created or retained. So Eric has mentioned a few times our Manufacturer in North Carolina database, and I wanted to talk about it a little bit. So it's our online supplier database. It contains company profiles. If you have a website, that's wonderful. If you don't, this is another way to showcase what you do. We have a vetting process that we go through for the profiles that are in the database to make sure that they are legitimate manufacturers. We do not require manufacturers who join this to be headquartered here. If you are, that's wonderful. If not, that's fine. We just require that you have some sort of manufacturing presence in North Carolina. And it doesn't even need to be a very large manufacturing presence. If you are primarily wholesale or retail, but you do manufacture something, you're eligible to sign up for this. It's free to sign up for this. It's completely free. And one characteristic that we wanted to make sure that this database had from the very beginning was that it would be completely open and searchable. And we wanted search engines to find it. We didn't want there to have to be any kind of account created in order to search this. So a lot of times the profiles in this site will rank higher than a company's own website. And we get many inquiries that come through this site of people trying to get in touch with various companies. And we've heard some interesting stories of suppliers being found to help a company bid on like a couple $1 million contract. And there are likely other stories that we're working on collecting as well, again, about finding suppliers, obtaining business, working together as well to obtain various contracts. And we take ourselves with this a very hands-on and personal approach. So if you have a problem accessing your profile, we're going to work with you. If you have questions about the best way, some of the information collected, we're going to work with you to help you flesh out. If you have any kind of issue, we're always here, and we will get back in touch with you to make sure that your profile is as robust as possible, because ultimately this is where we begin our supplier searches. We have other databases that we use as well, but the first thing that we want to do is we want to go to the Manufacturer of North Carolina database and start our supplier searches. We have about 1,800 manufacturers in here at this point, and it's growing every day. But I wanted to show you on the left, we collect the type of information that we collect. We collect information about the type of classification that the industry is, what kind of manufacturing capabilities you have, the materials that are used, if you have quality certifications, if you're 9001 certified or AS9100, or if you have special business certifications, veteran-owned, hub zone, that sort of thing. Also, your export markets, where you will export to, counties, basically anything that we can use to help us narrow in as much as possible on a potential supplier. Now, the example on the right is what a profile looks like. And there's more information that has been supplied. This was just a quick screenshot, but our goal, again, is to make this at a quick glance something that will give us as a searcher looking for potential matches for open opportunities, a place to start. But then also you can go in and search this information and build your own list of suppliers to contact. So for the resources, all of the links for the supplier matching program are available on the NCMEP website, and the address is right there. And basically it's all organized under find a supplier or become a supplier, because we serve both of those. So the takeaways before we get to the Q&A, what I want us to think about: the purpose of this program: build and enhance domestic supply chains. And it's the entire supply chain. We don't care if you're very small. We don't care if you're very large. We don't care if you're one type of manufacturer or the other. We serve the entire manufacturing supply chain. We serve, if you're a North Carolina manufacturer, we will work with you. Also, we have quite a few partners, both locally, statewide, regionally, and even nationally, to help us find potential sources or to help us hone in, especially if there are other characteristics of a supplier that are needed. And so we have an extensive network of partners that we work with. And normally I emphasize this quite a lot. I don't think I've actually emphasized this yet. This is a free program. We are able, through our federal partnership, to be able to bring these services, these matching services, to you at no cost. There's no commission, there's no fee. This is no cost. The only thing it costs you is your patience with mine and Eric's enthusiasm for this program. But the ultimate goal for all of this is to provide business opportunities for North Carolina and North Carolina manufacturers, because we want manufacturing to remain strong, get even stronger, and to have extensive supply chains within the state. So how you can participate: if you don't have a profile in manufacturing in North Carolina, please go and create your profile. It will take just a few minutes. If you have a profile, you might want to check it and see if you need to update it. And if you're having any issues, we understand people leave, and so you may not have access. We can get that access for you so you can change your profile. Also, contact your regional manager and they can help you as well. We have on a link on the NCMEP site, a link to the supplier request form, so that if you have a need that you need filled, fill it out and we will be back in touch with you. We also have a list of the open opportunities that has been updated as of this morning. And it's, as Eric pointed out on that one slide, it's all across the board. It's quite a diverse list of open opportunities. And Ultimately, we want you to help spread the word. You may not have a supplier need, but someone in your industrial park may have a supplier need, or you may be at a party and you may hear someone say, oh yeah, my supplier is, they're retiring or they're going out of business or the cost increase or whatever. If you don't need this, please spread the word and help us, because there are a lot of manufacturers that we may not know about. And we want to make sure that they know about this program. So while you are formulating your questions, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Barbara Williams, to talk about one other initiative as well.
Thank you, Kian. And I noticed that our NC MEP Center Director is on the call this morning as well. So I'm going to defer to him to talk about the Smart NC grant. So Phil Mintz, take it away.
Yeah. Thanks, everyone. And I appreciate your time on this webinar. Again, this is a different subject from this webinar, but it all ties together. Again, as we try to improve our supply chain, we know that a lot of our manufacturers are challenged to increase their productivity and lower their costs. And so as Kian mentioned earlier, one of the three focus areas of our manufacturing program is technology adoption. So we're always on the lookout for a good grant to share with our manufacturers across the state, and we actually found one. It is called a Smarter NC program from the Department of Energy. And the focus of the Smarter NC program is to help our smaller manufacturers adopt technology that can increase their productivity. And so we have funding to support smaller companies who are ready to invest in some technology and are willing to buy some technology equipment. The grant will help with the integration and the training around that program up to a certain level. Again, you can learn more about this program from these QR codes. If you're a QR code enthusiast, you can do it now, and you can actually apply for the program now. And so I'm encouraging you, if you think you're interested in technology adoption, the smart manufacturing technology is kind of a good entry point for that. And so just go to the application, apply, and again, and you really can't hardly fail the application unless you're not a manufacturer or you don't operate in the state. So we want to come out and visit your organization and talk to you about what you think you want to try to do, how technology might improve your production, and all those great things. Again, this is a program that's supported by the federal government through a grant. And again, it doesn't cost anything for us to come out and take a look. So the QR code is right there. So you can do it now. You can apply right now. You can see what the application looks like. So all of you QR code enthusiasts, do it now, apply, and we'll be out to see you. But the links are there, and you'll get these in the email afterwards to learn more about the Smarter NC grant. And we're going to be doing a webinar later, but there's we had an intro webinar that's already there for you to learn more. But I encourage you. I mean, we all need to have technology and workforce moving forward. And this is a way to help you get started. So we look forward to seeing your application.